In April of 1861, there were 8 states that were still part of the Union that had to decide whether to be a slave state or a free state. Okay, there were 8 states that had to decide, do we want to be free? Do we want to be slave? What do we want to be? And these 8 states were Arkansas, Delaware, Kentucky, Maryland, Missouri, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. So just kind of look at these and think right now, which way do you think these states went? Arkansas a little bit to the south, so maybe they're going to go as a southern state. Delaware more to the north. Kentucky, it's right there in the south. Maryland, right there in the south, right next to the border of where Washington D.C. is. Missouri, we have the whole Missouri Compromise, which is now illegal anyway. North Carolina, which kind of in the south. Tennessee, right there with Kentucky, and then Virginia, which is one of the main growing places that we have. So as far as crops, so where do you think they're going to go? Well, here are the ones that went to the south: Virginia, as you would expect. North Carolina, which following South Carolina, I kind of get that. Tennessee and Arkansas. Those are the 4 states that left the United States and went with the Confederate States. Now, we're going to call the Confederate States the South, the Confederate States, the rebels at times. There'll be different names for them. They're the gray because they were gray. And the United States, these 4 states went with the United States, stayed with the Union. So it could be the Union, the North, the Blue, the Yankees. Okay, those are all kind of terms that are used to describe the United States during this war. But Kentucky, just a little bit north of Tennessee, Missouri, Maryland, and Delaware all stayed with the United States. Out of all of these, which do you think is most important that stayed with the U.S.? And I kind of gave a hint on the last slide when I said it. If you're thinking Maryland, you are correct. And the reason Maryland was so important is because it was right next to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is right on the border between Maryland and Virginia. And if both sides of Washington, D.C. were in the South, then it would be really hard to keep Confederates away from it. So with Virginia being in the South, Maryland being in the North, it kind of protects Washington, D.C. somewhat. So very important that Maryland rather, stayed with the North. But these states were called border states. Okay, and they're kind of like math. You're more border in that class than you are in any other class. But in this case, they're border states because they border the South. They're right between the North and the South, and they could go either way. And they were afraid the whole time of kind of making these states mad, because if the North made them mad, they may just turn around and leave and go to the South, and then that would give the South more of an advantage.